Well, hello again. Well, you already know what time it is. It's time for another TwoSun Tuesday. This is the TS80. This one actually has a name, the Jaeger. Like Jägermeister, so Jaeger. This guy actually isn't a flipper, which is actually kind of rare in TwoSun's lineup. It also doesn't quite have thumb studs. It has thumb objects. These guys are G10. They're orange because, well, TwoSun seems to like orange quite a bit these days. But yeah, it's a pretty chunky blade. Pretty interesting triangular kind of tanto vibe going on here with this guy. Yep, he's also in D2, obviously. He's one of the earlier models, so there you go. And this is Vitesse Designs. I might be wrong, but this is the only one that I'm familiar with that they've partnered up with TwoSun on. So yeah, there you go. This guy kind of breaks away from some of the norms a little bit. For one, there's Jade G10, which I don't know. You kind of like it on one or two knives, and then once everybody starts doing it, it gets to be a little less interesting. So there's that. If you like it, you like it. It's got a little bit of a cutout here on the back, so you have a lanyard hole that's a little bit less. This one actually has a bespoke pocket clip, and it's not deep carry, and it's two screws vertically in a line, and it's not recessed into the G10. That worries me quite a bit because, well, I've already seen, not this guy, but I've already seen other clips from, other American companies that are, oh so much better at manufacturing than anything that China could do. Also has problems with these clips coming loose. So, there's that. But it is quite deep carry as far as the thickness of the material you can actually shove this into is. That's pretty cool. You can also see that the pivot it's not quite centered to the handle. It's a little bit lower, and you can see something that worries me just a little tiny bit. But we'll get into that once I kind of get this guy apart a little bit. But yeah. The ergonomics aren't too bad overall on this little dude. You can choke up pretty much right here. This is definitely a sharpening choil. I couldn't even imagine a child could slap their fingers in there for, increased stability or whatever. And yeah, you can just see the thickness of that blade that comes basically out towards the tip area there. Yeah, you can go ahead and choke up. It's actually not too bad at all as far as comfort goes. I do have to say, because this clip sticks out quite proud, that is quite the hot spot, unfortunately. I'm just not really a big fan of this clip. Generally, I don't mind something like a scoop, but I do like kind of a spoonbill on the end of it, like well, Spyderco and Benchmade do, because, well, it works. It doesn't stab you or anything like that. But for me, it's mostly back here at the arch that's really getting to me. But, oh well. It is certainly a chunky stabbing knife kind of thing. You can see basically that the G10 discs here come just barely shy of the handle scales because they're not actually the blade stop. The blade stop is internal to the pen here. But yeah, you got the orange accents with the thumb disc and also the G10 backspacer here. And yeah, we can take a closer look and get on inside it. At least it's T8 hardware all around. Makes my life so much easier, not having to worry about stripping out itty bitty little screws. Alrighty, I'll just pop this guy out from the back. He really wanted to get away from me. Oh well. And pop that pivot out. It is the standard TwoSun pivot. And yep, there's your G10 slab for you. This guy has what I've probably already gone over on a few TwoSuns here already, but it's worth me stating it again. You can see that this guy has the blade stop is internal to the pen, which means it's not located on a liner. And because they really wanted to maximize the amount of blade or handle to the amount of blade, they pushed it very far forward. And that means they have to cut this part of the front of the liner off there. And, well, with that comes ingress of, dirt, grime, lint, whatever. And this is already a ceramic ball bearing knife. It's not, using the standard washers that a lot of old school knives did. So you have a bit more ingress of junk that can get inside there. So either you probably don't want to take this onto a construction site where you're going to be opening up, I don't know, bags of cement or being in a crazy dusty environment, or you're going to want to clean it out quite often. That's just kind of how that is. It's part of the design, but hey, the action's great for it. So yeah, I can take them all sorts of apart. Now you can see the non-liner side, or the non-liner lock side is skeletonized a decent amount, but this guy is a little hefty fella. He's 5.39 ounces, around 153 grams, somewhere right around there. But yeah, he's a interesting little fellow. You can remove these guys if you don't like them there. And I'm actually kind of interested to see... Hey, they actually are T8. That's also pretty sweet. What I would kind of like to do, and I'm not sure if it will agree with me at all, but we'll find out. No, I can't imagine it would. I was trying to basically just remove the G10 discs and keep the thumb stud on there, but it's just not gonna go through. It's not gonna seat correctly, so that's just gonna wiggle a bit. But I might just leave them off here, and yeah, you can see it. I haven't taken these off before, so it has a little bit of that TwoSun Vaseline treatment or whatever other grease that they like to use on to douse, especially their D2 models. But yeah, as usual, you got the reverse detent track on it. It's cool. And something else that excites me is that this guy has a D-shaped pivot, at least partially. And hey, partial is better than none. I don't really like when my pivots spin and I gotta try and pin them down and do all sorts of other crazy stuff. It's a lot more work than it really needs to be. But yeah, the G10 backspacer here is basically held in place with a couple of pins, as well as that one singular screw there. Which doesn't bother me any, as long as, the pens are actually robust, then, makes my life easy. I don't have as many screws to be able to actually pull this guy fully apart. So yeah, this blade is quite the interesting tanto style. you can see that it does come down to a fairly thin point, but it widens out very, very, very quickly. So, I mean, it is quite robust, but because this has quite the shallow angle on there, it's not going to be quite I don't know, the piercing powerhouse that, cold steel kind of made a whole bunch of claims with tanto knives when they started popularizing them. But yeah, it still works quite well. It's certainly not my favorite knife of TwoSun's, but it does have quite the nice drop shutty feeling or whatever, because this blade is heavy. It's yeah, I mean, like the blade stock on it is like 3.9 millimeters. It's quite the thickness. I actually found it quite interesting because it's actually not a flipper, which the vast majority of TwoSun's are either flippers or slip joints. So this was something a little different. It's kind of nice to break that up a little bit. So yeah, let's I don't remember which one of these two. It's that one. Yeah, there we go. One of those is for the lanyard hole. You don't really want to shove any mounting hardware in there. Okay. This was for the thumb disc. The other thing that I was saying was super cool earlier, with it having a D-shaped pivot on there. This was kind of a transitional period, because the liners on both sides aren't D-shaped. This just happens to have a more recent version of those pivots in there. So, it's obviously when you have a standard pivot sort of thing that your company uses, then you kind of want to use that as much as possible. So when they've updated it, they're like, well, we don't really need to make something super special for this guy in particular. So they didn't. So yeah, it's got a D-shaped pivot, but it doesn't take advantage of it. It's not really the end of the world, because I haven't really run into free spinning pivot kind of issues with this guy. I do gotta crank it down just a little bit to be able to get that nice and tight, though. As usual, I have decided that this knife probably didn't need those ball bearings, and I was very wrong. Very, very wrong. I got a different spudger in front of me today. Yeah, it's another metal one, I know, but it's what was right in front of my face. So, yeah, that's the one I'm finna use. Alright. There we go. Action should be, actually acceptable now that it has correct bushings on both sides. I've never quite understood the use of the term bushings. Like, I know it's a technical engineering sort of thing. It just kind of, not coming from a lot of that background, it's a little strange to me, because, I liken that to vegetation and whatnot. So. Probably not the most interesting conversation in the world. That's okay. I do wish that they did tap this for lefties as well. I guess no, with the slant that they have, it could have worked as well. Oh well. Let's see if we don't just give that guy just a little micro turn. There we go. Yep, no blade play or anything there. And yeah, you got just a little bit of cut out there where the G10's supposed to sit in there. So yeah, you can't thumb flick it out without making a giant conscious effort for it, but you can pretty easily Spidey flick it out. So yeah, I do like the option to be able to remove that there. That is kind of interesting, and something I've played around with on one or two others that have had a thumb deployment things that aren't necessarily studs. I do have to say they're not my favorite. I'd much prefer an actual thumb stud if I'm going to have something that my thumb will deploy. Or a front flipper. I don't know. Either way, both of those kind of, make me nice and fuzzy. But these guys just, they're awkward because I can't quite get a decent idea on where to place my thumb to just kind of flick forward to get it out there. It's always like, well, I got to actually put my thumb on it and rotate it around, and that feels a lot more like a spider hole. So I don't know why they would decide to do that. Excuse me. Yep. Well, anyway, that's kind of the inside and the outside of the TS80 Jaeger from Vitesse Design. Big old chunky tanto with a very shallow point out there. It's still very pointed down here at the tip, so it is still a lot more of an American style than your traditional Japanese tanto knives would be. And I guess as far as my opinion on how to pronounce this blade shape, I'm going with tanto, because if you're reading it in Japanese, the language in which had that came from, the A's are pronounced as ah. They're not a like we say here in the States. I could also kind of argue that a more traditional one would be a tanto, whereas something like this, an American style, I'd suppose you could call it a tanto if you really wanted to. But as far as the word origin and how you should pronounce it, I do believe it's with an ah sound. So there you go. There's my 2 cents on that. This guy's a little thick boy at 0.67 of an inch thick. So yeah, it's a little thicker than your standard 0.5, 0.55 inch. It's got a little bit of girth on there. That's okay though. And it's a 3.5 inch blade, so for me, I consider that normal, but there's plenty out there who think this is an enormous knife. So there you go. It really does depend on the hands, and I have basically XL hands, so as far as glove measurements go. So there you go with that. I believe that's all the stats and everything out of the way. Yeah. Looks like I did cover everything. Cool. I also keep all the stats for all the knives that I review down in the description in case you're curious about any of the particular measurements. Then they should be there. And if not, well, berate me or whatever, because they should be there. So yeah, I don't really have a whole lot extra to say about this guy. It's just interesting. It's a Vitesse Design, and I haven't seen anything else from Vitesse. So kind of interested to see kind of what happened or what is happening with them as a designer. Like if they've sold their designs elsewhere, if they're just sticking with custom design work, or other. Yeah. Alrighty. Well, as always, I appreciate y'all for watching. And I hope you have yourself a wonderful rest of your day, yo.